Disney Corporation and all its subsidiaries.
Well, gosh, Neeksy, I guess we better get started.
All right, so welcome back. I know we've been absent for a while. Sorry about that. I had a quite a protracted illness, one that lasted for a bit over a month, and I was unable to talk for at least 3 or 4 of those weeks. So I'm back, recovering, and we're gonna get more episodes out for you. So today we are going to be talking about the new Mickey Mouse shorts.
Which
That
I think are actually technically just called Mickey Mouse
Yep.
TV series.
But first, let's go through some of the animation news that we have missed in the period since we've been there. So one of the first I do want to address, and it's kind of a sad note, is that the creator of Ruby on Rooster Teeth, Monty passed away suddenly. I think from an allergic reaction of some sort, and that was pretty tragic and very sudden. So I think a lot of people definitely understood that even though we weren't necessarily a fan of his work and the ideas behind it, I did respect the idea that he was able to get it made. A lot of people will sit on these types of ideas for a long time and they'll never actually do it. So I very much kind of respected the fact that he went out and did it and got it done. And hey, people liked it. I don't. I didn't like the show. I didn't think it's very good, but hey, he got something created, and that's a lot more than many people can say. And I think he also said some kind of neat things at the end. I think, as far I'm hearing the secondhand, that in kind of the wake of it, he had hoped people would be creative, to make more things and kind of pushing for creative freedom as his modus operandi. So I definitely give him props for that.
Yeah, it's too bad. I'm not like just like you. I'm not a huge fan of his works or the things he's done, but it's too bad. I do not wish anything like that on anybody. So
Yep. Um, in other horrifying news, a new Adam Sandler movie that is coming out. We're calling it animation because it's using quite a bit of CG as the part of the major premise, called Pixels, appealing towards I guess gaming man children who were in arcades in the early '80s.
so I think they're just aiming in general at man children from the 80s.
Hmm.
Given that it's just basically just like, oh, aliens have decided that Pac-Man was a declaration of war on the aliens, so now they're gonna attack the Earth using video game sprites. Oh my gosh!
Is,
Oh,
is
they're
is Adam Sandler a lovable loser who maybe is just he has failed to launch in his life, and maybe this alien invasion will finally be the push he needs to make something of himself, and his obscure, I don't know, either music or video games or anger problem of some sort, one of those three will be the thing that saves the world.
yes.
Mm.
Okay, so
So we so
enough
so
about
so we
that.
so we know exactly where this movie's going.
Oh, absolutely, it is like every other thing that Adam Sandler has made ever.
Hmm.
So it'll the only enjoyment that can be had out of it is the fact that it'll be probably pretty easy to make fun of.
Yeah, we're expecting a red letter media, some kind of response that will be, and that'll be fun. It'll
Yeah.
be a spectacle, I think, is what it is.
Yeah, and that
I
tends to
mean,
be the kind of the thing that happens with these shows or movies rather.
yeah. So Oscar news, quite a bit late with this, but Big Hero 6 was the one that won. I don't think
Not
any
really
Not
surprising.
really surprising. I mean, I think a lot of people, when they were talking about why it won, I think I actually addressed kind of an interesting issue in that people who were kind of upset about it winning were not saying that it was a bad movie, but they were upset that there's a kind of institutional advantage given to these larger studios in terms of recognition and financing and things like that. So a lot of the Academy people have absolutely no idea about these other films because they just don't look at it, and the way animation is treated in in Hollywood and also these award ceremonies is kind of backwards thinking in a lot of ways. There was what was that quote where one of the Oscar people was saying like, "Oh, it's some Chinese film when some fucking Chinese film, I think was the quote, and it was in reference not just to Princess Kaguya, but also um, uh, Tale of the Sea, which was a European animation.
Yeah, I mean, there's been always it's always very fascinating when Academy like the actual Academy notes are leaked on specific films because it's kind of just like, oh, there's so many that's like
Mm.
didn't see it, didn't see it, didn't see it. Oh, I saw this one,
Well,
and it's like,
it's not
well,
just that they didn't see
obviously,
it; it's that they were just almost hostile to the idea of like a non-Disney film.
yeah.
Like
Well, I'm
that
just
was
saying
almost
like
what
you
it
see it a
was.
lot though,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just interesting that it applies to. It's certainly worse for animation stuff, but it seems to be a kind of a endemic thing in general for the Academy.
Yeah. So, but I think there was an interesting conversation to be had about institutional advantages in terms of audience and what's considered like a canon film and things that kind of get released and things like that. But other than that, Big Hero 6, it's decent movie. You know, it's not like an upset by any means, but I think it made a lot of people upset just because they felt that it was an unfair competition essentially. But again, this is the Oscars, and as much value as they can have, really, at this point. Let's see. Adventure Time is also getting a feature film. I think this was kind of expected for quite a while. I'm not sure what it's going to be like. I think, if I recall correctly, Penn Ward doesn't really work on Adventure Time anymore himself. So it'll be a film created without its original creator, I think, at the helm. The show still seems to be doing well, ratings wise, and people seem to be enjoying it. They've been hiring a lot more of these kind of independent comic artists on staff, so they've been making a lot of episodes very kind of indie comics like, just kind of concept based. So not sure what they're going to be doing with the movie, who's going to be animating it yet, but it is just been announced that they're in the works for it. And I think what was really funny is I think it was the Hollywood Reporter website. The image they showed was some DeviantArt fan art that they had found instead. Because I'm like, who are these characters? And it's like, oh god, these aren't characters in the show. These are fan made characters in the artwork that the Hollywood Reporter was using as their photo. It was really just it was just lazy. Um,
Well, that doesn't surprise me to be honest.
yeah. Let's see. Ducktales, the classic TV animation from Disney, is getting rebooted. So it's not that the game has gotten rebooted, because that's already happened, but the TV series is getting rebooted. I don't know what form this is going to be. It's just been announced, really. It's kind of like how Cartoon Network just recently did its upfronts, and we just got a whole bunch of announcements of what shows are renewed. Pretty much all of them running are getting renewed, and a few new ones, but we haven't gotten too many details or any pilot episodes that we can look at. So I'm hoping it'll be good. I would like them to do it as a 2D animated thing and keep it in that style, but you never know. I just at least hope they aren't going to do it in Flash or CG. At least do Toon Boom. At least make it Toon Boom, not Flash.
I don't know. Can they do it like that?
In Toon Boom, a
Well,
lot of
well, I just yeah,
Toon Boom is still symbol based.
well,
It's
I'm
just that
sorry.
yeah.
I meant more like in terms of doing it in like CG. It's like I think that would kind of kill all the appeal in terms of like nostalgic sense, wouldn't it? I mean,
Oh
it might
yeah,
be cheaper
it
to
would
do
be
it in current
it
day
would be
audience,
it
but
would be a terrible idea. I'm just hoping they choose not to do it. Just because it's a
yeah,
terrible idea doesn't mean they won't do it.
yeah, it's very
Knowing
true.
how these things happen. So that's kind of exciting. Let's see. Gravity Falls had a recent episode that was really popular because it was like a big cliffhanger thing. Of course, Disney Channel is deciding to wait a few months to even continue showing the rest of that series. I don't know if Disney likes that show or wants to kill it off by scheduling it in the most ass backwards way possible. And then, speaking of another show that just suddenly exploded in that same week, Steven Universe wrapped up its first season with something I thought was really kind of interesting. And then I was kind of skeptical of it at first, but they did something, at least the staff behind the show called it the Steven Bomb, where every day of the week, Monday through Friday, they had a brand new episode of Steven Universe showing, with a half hour, basically two of those episodes scrunched together on Thursday, with a huge season climax, and then an episode with the aftermath. And I was originally skeptical of it because a lot of TV shows when they're really just sorry, a lot of networks when they want to get rid of a TV show or aren't really supporting it, they're like, we have all these episodes and we want to get it over with and free up that airtime for like the next show we hope will be successful. So they just burn it off. They'll show multiple episodes really quickly and things like that. But in this case, it was actually kind of like a really smart decision because the pacing in order to get to this finale, they really wanted to kind of ramp up that expectation and not have people wait weeks and weeks and weeks to get to it. And so they kind of let these episodes just really build up to this just really fantastic climax with an amazing song that got really popular, and then having a nice episode for kind of like dealing with the climax after. They actually had to they had to move around a whole bunch of episodes. So some of the episodes we're getting now are ones that were actually originally made before this kind of climax.
Hmm.
So they really wanted to plan around this week of, okay, we're going to get into some plot narrative stuff, so we're going to just stick it all in this one week. And it paid off. I mean, not only did it just for the sake of, being able to view and not have to wait weeks on it, the agony,
Hmm.
it captured a lot of attention. I mean, so the Nielsen's household thing as a way of doing ratings is kind of, I think, outmoded. I mean, I don't think I've ever met another person who is a Nielsen household.
Well, you're talking to one right
Oh
now.
wow, so you are a Nielsen household. That's
Uh,
which is rare.
well, yeah, because I got it in the mail, and apparently I bullshitted that I had cable service. So,
um, but I mean, in general, it's kind of outdated, especially considering how people view a lot of the stuff. I mean, a lot of people aren't viewing stuff on TV; they're viewing it on the official website, or they're downloading it, or they're getting it off iTunes and things like that. And how does that factor into whether or not people will support it? And one of the things that's emerged now is online buzz is almost as good as ratings to some degree, or at least another indicator of a show success in terms of capturing an audience and getting them dedicated to it. Because when you have a dedicated fan, they're more likely to financially support a show.
mhm.
So like they're the ones that are going to buy the DVD. They're going to buy the books, comics, toys, games, and things like that. Rather than someone who's maybe watching it on TV, they may or may not actually give a shit about it.
Well, that's true with in general with generating media buzzes. Is that media buzz drives a lot of sort of marketing and merchandising and that sort of thing, where it's the big growth period. You saw with like Adventure Time that there were these spikes that would occur where basically popularity would go on, it would go super high. People wouldn't shut up about it anywhere, and you
It
see
acts as
this all the time.
advertising too.
Sure, and you see this all the time basically, and that's where you want to be as your you at least want to have it happen once for a show that you have people just constantly just gawking over it. And often shows will get past that where they get down and people are like, oh, that show used to be popular, people used to never shut up about it, and now people watch it, but you never really see this level of hype anymore. And that's kind of true of any sort of it almost feels like a kind of a fad for some things, where there's these fad, influences, especially when it comes to say things that teens are into, kind of the upper teen, early 20 age, year old things. You see this all the time with
Oh yeah.
a certain show is in vogue, and then people never shut up about it, and then people continue to watch it. People continue to watch Adventure Time, but people aren't nearly as effusive about it these days as they were, say, a couple years ago.
Well, of course, Adventure Time has been around for like 6 or 7 years at this point.
Yeah, and it's
So
still super popular. It's just that nobody's, it's the level of, hype is not as high as it used to be.
yeah.
And the thing is that you want to capture at least an event of hype and be able to keep some level of it going in the sense that they'll keep people giving attention to it, and that also drives a lot of it. I presume the merchandise engine, the DVD engine, that sort of thing,
Oh
the
yeah.
stuff that
Well,
really
as soon
makes
as
free
Cartoon
money.
Network gets that out, I mean, Cartoon Network is kind of almost, I would say, notoriously terrible at monetizing a lot of their shows.
Hmm.
Like, it takes them a long time to get the DVDs out. They very rarely have a lot of products about it. I mean, they could honestly learn from Japan, I think, in a lot of ways, from like the type, the amount of ancillary markets that they can do to make up a lot of what they put into it, because they have quite a few hits right now. I mean, a lot of
Well,
what they're putting on is very popular.
to be fair, with part of that though, like the whole thing with that in terms of the Japanese market is the sense that they only make money off the secondary
Oh,
market on their
that's true.
products.
That yeah.
They don't make any money from the TV. I'm pretty sure Cartoon Network is making a lot of
Oh,
money
from
on these,
advertising.
on
Yeah.
just plain like TV airings.
Well,
Nothing
that's what I mean
makes
by
money on TV airing.
advertising is the TV airing.
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
the ratings.
Nothing makes money in Japan like that except for I don't know, One Piece,
Yeah, maybe. I mean, and that's sponsor, and
Detective
and for
Conan,
them,
maybe.
it's direct sponsorship too.
Yeah, a lot of that's also feeding back into it. Sure.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what's going on with that. And then DreamWorks is still kind of flailing a bit. I think last time we talked about that they laid off quite a few people. A bunch of their TV shows that they had in development were originally being produced in Canada, and then they got outsourced again. So they've actually been even from Canada they're being outsourced. So they're in trouble there. But then the news came out that they are closing some of their branches and selling their main Glendale campus. You know, this really beautiful campus. It doesn't mean that they're closing the entire studio down, but instead of owning it, they're going to be renting the space essentially after the
Hmm.
sale. And so a lot of people are wondering about what DreamWorks path is. I mean, they're still keeping their Chinese branch, I think, over in Beijing. I don't know what's going on with that one. They are producing their own, I think, Chinese market content, so it's not like all the American work is going over there. But they're kind of hoping that this next movie, Home, I think, with the Big Bang Theory guy doing the voice and all that, they kind of better hope that that's going to do well because they really need a hit.
What was the last major thing that they did that was a hit?
Kung Fu Panda did really well.
Oh yeah, Kung Fu Panda is
How to
well.
Train Your Dragon movies did fairly well, although I don't think they were enough considering just the amount of investment they've put in. Like
Hmm.
I mean Turbo just they ate it with Turbo.
Did they?
Yeah, it they had a huge that was a very big write off for them. They've had a lot of write offs essentially. They were hoping it was going to turn into a really big franchise thing, and I mean they made a TV series out of it, and they were hoping it was going to be a big thing. It just didn't really capture the public imagination, as much as they tried to make it a thing. Um, they haven't even done like a. I mean, we make fun of Shrek sequels, but it's been quite a few years since they've returned to that pool.
I mean, they've had a few things that have done well, like the How to Train Your Dragon stuff.
Oh
Usually
yeah,
made a lot of money. I'm
but
sure they
but
make
not
money
enough
off
to
of
cover.
every.
Well, but not enough to cover some of the previous losses, though. That was
Yeah,
the issue. Is as good as those films were doing, the amount of write offs they had to do in that kind of quick succession was not doing well.
yeah. I'm sure they make money plenty off of every single Madagascar related film that they make.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I know for a fact they make tons off of that.
Yep. I mean, and they even have I think The Croods as a TV series coming out, and they have King Julian. I'm not sure how well that Madagascar spin-off movie did. I watched it. It was an okay movie. Had good gags, but
The Penguins one or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, it had some really good gags in it. It was fun.
According to this, they made 365 off of 132. So
That's not too bad. I mean, but they
that's in the plus.
yeah. I mean that's it. But again, considering the write-offs, it might not be enough. I mean, they needed like a shirt. They need something big,
Yeah,
and
the thing with their market is that they're spending they need to make a lot more than like equivalent or two times just because they have
well,
to
they have to
support a lot with the
reinvest and do all
studio.
that. Yeah,
Yep.
you know. And with Home, I mean, again, I haven't seen the movie yet. Of course, I mean, it's out over abroad, but I don't think it's out here yet. I'm not looking forward to Home. It's basically this alien ate a urinal cake. Oh, and then he drank pee. That's funny.
Yeah, the critical reception for it has been not very good at all. In fact,
I
it's been
thought the art
extremely
style was cute. I mean, I kind of liked the character designs. I think DreamWorks is more willing than Disney to give characters different faces and heads, but
sure, but it looks really
it
generic.
looks generic and I mean everything else. It's not looking good. Um, which sucks because I think there's a lot of really talented people at DreamWorks. So I definitely don't want them to be gone, and I think it's important for that studio to exist as just a another studio putting out content that's different. than other
It's
ones.
always good to have competition in that industry,
Yep.
in any industry.
So let's hope. I mean, I definitely don't want to see a bunch of people out of jobs because it's already a competitive market. And I think well, let's wrap up this news section with kind of a small announcement, but it's the Perfect Blue storyboard book. Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue, his first animated film, has been released. I got a copy of it myself, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's like full size, like the original, like what he actually drew on, so you can see like the kind of like the mechanical pencil marks and everything. And I got that on a website called Tokyo Otaku Mode, so I was able to pre-order it, got it shipped pretty quickly. Bit pricey, but it's huge. It's a giant book with like the three different parts. It even has like some art boards from the movies and a bunch of the color printings of illustrations he made for the promotion of it all. And it's just it's really beautiful. And I've been waiting for some of his storyboards to come out. I think for Paprika storyboards, you were only able to get that storyboard book if you bought like a special Japanese only special DVD set. So like I was never able to get the storyboards for that. So I'm hoping that as we go along, they're going to release more of his original storyboards for these other films because they are immaculate. I mean, he was originally a comic artist, etc. So we'll go into that later. But that book is out. You can get it on like a bunch of websites. I got it from Tokyo Otaku Mode, and I think there's a digital PDF version that you can get from Satoshi Kon's website, Kon's Tone. It's in Japanese. I don't know if you can buy it from there if you're foreign, but it's available on there as well if you don't think you can afford a printed copy of it. So that's concludes the news. News over. Let's move on to what we're going to be talking about today. The new Mickey Mouse shorts on YouTube, done by Disney Television. So you were the one that suggested this. Any specific reason that kind of impelled you to kind of have us go down this one?
It's pretty simple. It's because they're really funny and they're really short, and I thought it'd be an easy thing for us to discuss. I mean, it's kind of straightforward. I mean, they're the funny thing about how widespread Disney is and how much of a big character, quote unquote character, Mickey is that if you go back to the old Mickey animation, a lot of it really isn't that good. In fact, a lot of it's pretty boring.
Yeah, like
You know,
a lot of the joke is Mickey wasn't the best, but he was the first. Or what was that famous Robert Smigel one where it was Journey to the Disney Vault? And Mickey's all like, "Oh, hey kids, I remember all the fun times I had with you," and the kids are like, "You were supposed to be funny." Yeah, like the thing is like a lot of the earlier Mickeys were actually kind of funny because he was a much more dynamic character, and over time he just became this kind of bland suburbanite. Just he didn't have a personality at all. But this one's interesting. So first of all, like I have to make a joke that if you go to the Disney Shorts YouTube page, that banner is a little bit goatsy. I mean, you have to. I mean, you have the hands and you have it separating the curtain in a circular form. I was like,
yeah.
that's a little bit goatsy. Disney. I was a little bit surprised by that, but and I actually know someone who has worked on these shorts. I think she works as a prop and extra character designer, so that's kind of cool. And so these started out, I think, being put on the internet around 2013. So they've been out
Mm,
for a decent while now. I honestly actually was not impressed with the first one. It was, I think, the Mickey in France one.
yeah.
Um, which I mean, I didn't think it was bad, but it wasn't interesting. But as they went along, they definitely ramped it up. So this is actually a U.S. Canadian co-production. So a lot of the groundwork, the ones that you'll see in the credits at the end of, well, they only started adding the credits more recently, but that staff in those credits is the U.S. office. So that's the Disney Television animation team, whereas the animation work itself is done at a studio called Mercury Filmworks up in I think it's Ontario, so that must be Ottawa. So it's one of those co-productions. Considering that it's Canadian animation, and I think Disney these days they must be using Toon Boom. Uh, Flash is it is still used in productions, but it is fading out. Canada is very much Toon Boom. In the US, you'll see Flash mostly used on the East Coast and some titmouse shows. They'll still use Flash, and the studio that I worked at, Augenblick, they use Flash. But in terms of West Coast, for the most part, in Canada, very much into the Toon Boom. I mean, it's still vector, it's still symbol based, but it's a bit more of a more powerful tool and was built around making animation rather than a web interface tool that happened to have animation and then they tried to make it around that. Um, it's just really interesting. So I'm really fascinated by the aesthetics of these shorts. I mean, like they kind of wanted to go for this retro aesthetic, but at the same time making it really modern. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't look like the Mickey Mouse model that you would have seen in the '80s, where his face was flesh colored and it was everything was very rounded. Like a lot of the stuff is very angular, simplified, and they kind of have some of the elements that you would have seen from like the '30s cartoons, but mixed in with kind of this UPA angular modernity kind of style.
There's a lot of kind of grossness to some of the animation, like some of the character models. Like
Oh, the
they,
grotesquerie. Yes,
yeah,
that's
they're
another thing.
really willing to like kind of take like kind of what is traditionally a oh Mickey is and Minnie are kind of the epitome of like kind of or epitome of kind of like the cute character, the really kind of cute character design. It's marketed as that, but then they have the show be so like grotesque at times that
Oh yeah.
it's a fantastic way of aesthetic. It's kind of a modern take on the past things, and it feels like some of the elements of it feel kind of like little Ren and Stimpy inspired at
Yes,
times.
I
It's
mean,
kind of odd.
and yeah, I mean, and so like the animation itself is not like as fluid as like older Disney shorts, but
Well, that's
but
you
the
know,
thing is but there's a reason for that. Those were originally meant to go in front of feature films, so the audience expectation was a lot different. I mean, you were sitting in a theater and you're watching something on the big screen. They used to make those very cinematic, but since the internet and the way things are promoted online is that it's advertising and audience cultivation, and that model relies on putting out content regularly, and they really don't have the ability, or there's no reason for them to have to make each thing look cinematic. Like uh, it's not going to look like Runaway Brain, like where it's painted very form based backgrounds with really fluid animation, cinematic camera cuts, a lot of like depth in what I call Z space animation, where there's a bit heavy foreground background. It's not needed that. Like this is made for online fairly regularly, and the style of the humor, they pull it off. I mean, it's a combination of symbol and drawn frames, so it pulls it off a lot. A lot of what they're doing is not needing to be super cinematic. They don't need to do the muted color palette and anything like that. And I think they're also, what's really interesting to me is, as you pointed out, that those kind of Ren and Stimpy things where and I don't want to say just Ren and Stimpy, but I think it's pretty common nowadays. You'll see like SpongeBob did it, where they'll suddenly change the character model to really express the grotesqueness. Like they'll distort the features in a way that was much more Warner Brothers. Like Warner Brothers, like school of animation, was very much into like expressionism. They were
right.
willing to change the character mass, really mess with the models to show what given emotion, expression, or pain in that given moment. Whereas the classic Disney animation model is very much about the conservation of mass and making things very fluid and pretty. So this is definitely kind of them going, yes, that has its place, but the types of jokes we want to tell, and just also the model of production and being able to just deadlines and put out content regularly, we're going to go with this kind of expressionistic model, and that's also a very modern phenomenon. Letting the models get contorted and weird and go off. I mean, you'll see it in even in shows that maintain them relatively consistent, they'll still do like nice little flourishes of weird off-model things where they contort the face, like in like a regular show or Steven Universe. They'll do that every once in a
Hmm.
while. They'll make the face very strange and expressionistic, but for good reason. And I think that's mixing with the kind of very modern writing, but it's modern without being dated though. Like they're not sticking it with a whole bunch of like Family Guy style references, and they don't have like, oh, hey Minnie, check out my new smartphone. Like they don't have them, referencing that. It's very timeless.
Sure. I mean, there are some pop cultural references, and but they're kind of more broad sort of things. The big example I'd say is I'm sure we're going to touch about this episode and these sorts of episodes in general, but the India episode
Mm.
where they had the Bollywood reference thrown in.
Yeah, but it
It's kind of a
wasn't.
broad cultural stroke
Oh
rather than
yeah, and
the specific thing.
Bollywood stylistically that has been around for decades.
Sure.
So that's enough of a cultural joke that you can kind of get away with it without, like they're not going to stick in a bunch of celebrities and pop songs, which
Yep.
is something that can really date, a show or a movie. It's like if you try to watch Shrek and the music comes on, you're like, oh crap, like it's just like, ah, Jesus, fucking Smash
Yeah.
Mouth. um,
Eat the egg.
yeah. I mean, and again, like I one of the things my favorite thing though is the backgrounds.
It
These
does have really good looking
Oh my god, the
backgrounds.
backgrounds. Okay, like so the animation is very un-Disney in the line style being like this very thick and thin, lines and kind of symbol based thing, but those backgrounds, this is classic Disney high art. Like they have this kind of Mary Blair influence, and they really harken also back to, I guess, Art Deco, and printmaking, and there's lots of texture going on. They're not interested in expressing like volume and realism, and are
Hmm.
instead going for this kind of expressionism thing, like the kind of like German expressionism, where things are catty corner, things might that instead of feeling like it's foreground, background, and depth of field, it's flattened without necessarily. I mean, it's flat, but not too flat. They're I would describe it as that they're a colorful and more flattened version of what you would have seen in Sleeping Beauty and like 101 Dalmatians.
Right, and it's super stylized as well. And
Oh yeah, like
the interesting thing
it's
is that they really differentiate the style. To have different styles on different episodes depending
well,
on
they
what they're
have
kind of
different
going for
direct
with
they have
their
different
theme.
directors. So some of this the way the scripts are written and the visuals, it's a different director. So again, like some of the backgrounds will be a little bit more kind of realistic, and they won't do like kind of abstract textures. But then in another episode, I think the one where it takes place in Holland, the fields are made out of gingham material.
Mhm. Another episode I think that had really interesting takes on backgrounds is the Yodelberg episode, the one that's all German
Oh
influence,
yes, yeah.
where you have like the sky has this neat like kind of like quilted look, and like all the trees look like they're kind of painted like art from it's
Bavaria. It's
they're going
Bavarian.
for
Yeah,
they're going for the Bavarian sort of art style, yeah, and the
yeah.
Bavarian kind of stereotype, but it's super fascinating and interesting to look at.
Well, they do their research. I mean,
Oh
like
yeah.
that's the thing about I really like about these various international episodes is not only do they have the characters speaking the language, which I think is really cool. So it's not
Oh,
like
that is the coolest
that's a
fucking
cool thing,
thing.
and it's like it's not about Disney being a tourist. It's like no, Mickey's kind of like this universal figure. He can kind of fit in everywhere. Yes, he is kind of like a famous American symbol, but what they're doing with a lot of these comedic situations and the humor is that it could work anywhere. And I think that they've really gone for this kind of timeless universal aspect. It's retro but modern at the same time.
A little thing on that I love is the fact that they don't subtitle it,
Well, because they
which
don't need
is
to. It's
I know.
in
I
those
just love
ones
that
it's
they don't feel like they have to,
well they did
and I
do in
love
one.
that.
In
Did
the
they?
old it's such a thing as it's the Beijing Zoo one where and they just show like they show the Hanji symbols or whatever. I don't what the
Oh, that's
and
yeah,
then
that's a little
and then they
different
have it
though.
like transform into like little parentheses zoo. And even that it's a joke. And in that
That
one
yeah, that's fine.
and
That's a
in that one
gag.
Disney's Mickey's a tourist in that
Hmm.
one rather than being from there, which let's say the India one he's like a pedicab, I think, or is it just a regular cab? It was some kind of cab driver
It's
of
like a
some sort.
rickshaw
Yeah,
driver.
yeah, he's like a rickshaw driver in that one. So he's a local in all the other ones, which I think is
That
really cool.
the India one I think is interesting in that it has actually like I wouldn't say a lot of dialogue, but it has a a fair bit of actual like things being said between people,
Oh
and
yeah,
it doesn't even matter that it's in a
and you
foreign
can
language
glean
because it's
it and you glean
completely
it from context. That's really
yep.
all it is. Yeah. So and I think they've actually been pretty respectful of it.
Yeah, I know. It'd be very easy to look at it and see it as like exploitative or really
Or
just kind of
bad stereotypes and things like that. But I
yeah, but
think
I have not got any sort of
I feel they're
takeaway of
respectful
that.
of it. I mean, they do so much. And I think the way they've been showing their respect is through the amount of research they have done.
Hmm.
In that, like, they're looking at a lot of the art movements, they're looking at a lot of this, a lot of the stuff, and they're putting thought into it. They're not just going off of what they gut instinct go like, India, they have curry, right? Like that's as much as maybe or call centers or so. Just they're not going off that. They go like, oh no, let's look at the religions, the pop culture there, the artistic style, the architecture. They're doing their homework, and that in itself is kind of for me at least partially a sign of respect for what they're doing. I don't think the French one is as well, but I think that was their first one, so they were still trying to, I think, get.
It was fine, but it just wasn't great. It was
It's
pretty
not
the
it's
most
not
stereotyped. I mean, it wasn't stereotypical. It was more generic.
yeah, and it didn't have as much edge as some of the other ones. And I mean, yeah, I mean, I here's the thing: is like the so this kind of odd production design thing where it's both retro and modern is the same thing as the writing.
Hmm.
So like they make it more universal and they're not too worried about making everything edgy. So I think that is definitely a blend of modern and traditional. But I think the most modern aspect of the humor is the self-awareness that the show has about its characters' history and things like that. So like they'll do jokes about the characters' appearances, like the no pants, no shirt, Pluto versus Goofy even thing gets addressed. What one of the ones I liked was Donald. It's like admitting it's like, oh, I don't know anything about sailing. She just really likes men in uniform, and so I wear this sailor suit all the time. And I'm like, oh god, that explains a lot. Like they'll do some jokes about like the character relationships. I like some of the Donald and Daisy moments where what was it? I think in that sailing episode where Daisy and Minnie are talking with each other, and like you
Mm.
find out how much on a thread that relationship is, and how much aware she is about his temper tantrums and things like that. Um, I like that they have Tress MacNeille as her voice.
Hmm.
It gives Daisy a lot of great sass to her. I think they also go into some more. I don't want to call it dark or maybe morbid territory. I'd say dark without being morbid.
I
Um,
think that the best example of that in the early ones was the Ghoul Friend episode,
oh
where
yeah,
it's
yeah,
literally just Goofy's corpse, basically.
or a goofy like figure. Yeah,
A Goofy like corpse, basically, where it goes to like the horror thing, but it turns out, hey, he's just a cool zombie, he just wants to be a friend. It's kind of
yeah, yeah.
it's really an interesting. In it, the overall the direction for that episode is super interesting. Like it's a very simple sort of theme, like oh, maybe you shouldn't take things at first impressions type thing, but it's also just really funny and how just goofy. I don't
Well,
know.
I was thinking like
Goofy how the concept
I was
is.
thinking kind of like dark territory where it's like in the episode with Goofy's grandmother, Donald. I think the moment that really hit me was Donald just silently taking like the hush
Yeah.
money after impersonating Goofy, and they just they spend like they leave it silent. He just like takes the money, walks out the door, and then you see him through the window just walking away on the sidewalk. Like and it's
Yeah.
like and he's just put on this long con, and he says nothing about it. And the silence of and that's kind of a dark territory. I think one of the darkest jokes, oddly, and it's not dark if you don't think about it. It's that one of the most recent ones where they do the job interview for Goofy,
Hmm.
and you have the I think the current company president. A lot of the stuff he says, there's some like psychological darkness going on inside of him that they kind of allude to through all this stuff, and
Hmm.
it was really great script, and oddly, I think some of the best jokes are the things that the tertiary characters end up saying. Like in the San Francisco episode, in the trolley chase scene,
Right.
there's some really great lines coming out of the tertiary characters. Like I think the trolley captain, the first one is like, it's like, hey everybody, we're approaching Chinatown, or as we locals like to call it, Chinatown. Like, and then there's like then there's the backup driver who's like, oh yeah, I know how to drive, except I can't drive without the manual, which I store up here, very conspicuously, and it flies away, and he's like, well, can't do anything about that. It's just it's just they're so they're willing to do that. I think doing verbal gags like that
Yeah.
that's a newer thing, and I
And
think
a
the
lot of the
best.
language also feels more modern in the sense like they're willing to use very like modern like colloquy. Uh,
colloquialisms and
Yeah,
phrasing
I
and
was thinking about the other recent episode, the one where Mickey leaves Pluto with Minnie,
oh god, yeah.
and then of course it's like, oh, here's the biscuits, don't give him too many biscuits, give him too many biscuits, and just the ending of that episode with like the language that Mickey uses, which I will leave unsaid just because it is hysterical what he
Oh yeah.
says. You know what I'm thinking.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But that just one line just killed me because it's not something you expect from a Disney cartoon period maybe, or from a Mickey cartoon certainly.
Well, I think in general the characters here are much more strongly characterized. So
Hmm.
so like Mickey and Donald have a much more interesting contest than before. So like Donald is very much more of this a foil for Mickey in a lot of ways, where he's this kind of sarcastic and realistic straight man to Mickey's kind of like unending optimism and hope.
Hmm.
And I think one of the
And then
mistakes.
Goofy's a piece of shit.
Well, yeah, Goofy has actually gotten a lot more. He's gotten a bit more Ladder Simpsons Homerized from what he originally was. He's a lot dumber than he was before. A lot less socially aware.
I love that he's just a redneck that lives in a swamp.
Oh yeah, that's a great
It's
characterization. Well, again,
fitting.
it's a lot more. There's a lot more specificity. They aren't just random suburban people in the same way that they used to be.
Yep.
So and here's the other thing I thought was really cool, is they allow Minnie to be funny.
Hmm.
They allow her to be funny on her own terms rather than just being kind of like the nag who's like, now Mickey, don't do this, or and then something bad happens and Mickey has to make sure all this stuff, or she's the damsel, or like the romantic goal, and that used to be pretty much her only role. No, in this one there's episodes based around her and her trying to get things done. She has a personality, and that's great. I mean, like, look at the Warner Brothers cartoons. There's no female funny character in any of those classic ones.
No. I mean, then they're willing to make it just purely standalone, like mini episodes without Mickey in it.
Yeah.
Like thinking, for example, of the Dutch one. That's a really good just standalone mini
Oh yeah,
episode.
and then the perfume one is really great.
Hmm.
I think the Pluto one with
Oh,
Minnie, that I mean that gives her a lot of characterization. I mean they're
a lot of background stuff. All the jokes about the fact that she apparently used to be a little heavy and stuff
oh yeah,
herself.
there's I mean it's great. I mean it's giving. She has a role beyond just being the target female character.
The girlfriend character, literally
Yeah.
girl Mickey. She's not literally girl Mickey.
Yes, exactly. I mean, and I think Daisy also has some, although I think Daisy is used a lot less.
She's kind of a gag, to be
Yeah. Well,
honest.
she's already much more specific, and it's perfect with Trace McNeil as the voice for
Hmm.
her. I mean, it's great.
Hmm.
It makes me think of Futurama whenever she opens her mouth. I just think I think these are really good, and I mean I'm really glad that Disney has kind of gone and done these. I think that the creators of this have put a lot of thought into it. Um,
I think
again,
it's
for the fact, even though I lament the lack of cinematic stuff in TV animation and shorts, I don't miss it in this case. I think they've picked the right style for the comedy and the content they're doing. I mean, the backgrounds alone are just works of art. I would love them to make a published book of just these layouts. I mean, just Jesus, they are amazing.
yeah. I think it's interesting also that from what I understand, these also, I mean, a certain aspect of these seem to be aimed more at a older audience, as a lot of the older cartoons admittedly were. It does seem to appeal also pretty well to kids, as I understand it, because our good friend of the show, Chiroko Joe, I understand that he's been watching these with his niece when they come out,
Mm.
and apparently she adores this. So
Well, I think
I
that
can
comes
see
back
it.
to what we were saying earlier. It's universal.
Yep.
It's like one of the things I really like is when they can do universal humor without it being lowest common denominator or condescending. And that's the thing, is like a lot of people will make the mistake, I think, of dismissing universal humor as being like, oh, it's just for kids, it can't possibly interest adults. And I go like, no, I think if you do something that's universal, kids and adults can enjoy it on the same level. Like there's got
I,
like a fun, it's like a fundamental unit of humor that people can appreciate without having to stick in, adult wink, wink, nudge, nudge jokes in a kids movie just to be able to call it all audiences.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is that gags themselves can be aimed at specific audiences and whatnot. You know, where
Without
you're going for.
but without
Well,
alienating
I'm
another
saying like
group.
no,
Yeah.
like gags can be aimed at specific audiences, but comedic timing itself is universal.
Yes.
Like a good joke, even if it's a universe one though that anybody appeals to anybody, if the comedic timing is good, people will still find it funny and laugh, even if it's not like, oh, we have to make it aimed at this specific audience. The comedic timing works,
Yes.
and that's one of the best things about the writing for the show is that the comedic timing is just
Oh,
phenomenal.
it's spot on. I mean, and one of the things I really think they've done well, and my favorite episodes are the ones that are actually very dialogue driven. I like them better than some of the silent episodes. One of my favorites is the Potato Land one,
That one was pretty good.
and that one has some just it's not that it's dialogue. It has a lot of dialogue and action, but it matches really well. Like in they got the characterization down really well. Like they it's just well done. I mean, it's. I mean, I'm talking in circles, but it's kind of hard to kind of, I'm walking around it trying to just get at what makes this work so well. But I think what it is that universality. They aren't making jokes that are condescending and that they're simplified for in a demeaning way for kids. It's that no, it's as you talked about the timing, the subject matter. It doesn't require a lot of external knowledge to get a bunch of these jokes. It doesn't require, too much history or pop culture or to get references and things like that. It's just no, these are, creative, unexpected twists and moments that anybody could understand, but it's not simplistic. It's simplified, but not simplistic, if that makes any sense.
Right? Yeah, that makes sense to me.
It's like another example I think also from Disney was one of the that Winnie the Pooh movie they released in theaters. The one that had like I think what was it like an Arcade Fire song in the previews for it.
Mm.
I actually went to go see it in theaters, and it was mostly adults in the audience, and they were laughing at it. A lot of the gags they did in that film, they were universal. Kids could understand it, and the adults also appreciated them because they were clever in a way that anybody could grasp, but still clever.
Yeah. I mean, it's often people often approach this the way that they approach these sort of things. In aiming thing for kids, they make it very puerile or very simplest. Like, oh, the man fell down and there was a fart,
Yeah, like
and
well,
and then
like
with the
it's
adult,
the fart jokes, and if you look at most animated movie trailers, it's just count the fart jokes or count the
yep,
poop jokes and things like that. It's like like I'm not against scatological humor, but it sometimes just feels lazy. It's condescending. It feels like there's like oh kids just put in a fart, they'll like it.
and then at the same time, then for aiming at an older audience, they tend to just make it like, oh, we're gonna reference sex. It's basically the form of adult humor
Yeah,
is sex,
that
which
wink,
I'm
wink,
all
wink,
for
wink,
sex
nudge,
jokes and.
nudge.
Yeah, I'm all for that kind of thing in a general sense, but really, the core comedic timing and actually having good, funny writing, that can be completely arbitrary and completely unrelated to the actual like subject matter if it's well written.
Well, again, like what I would say is that it has things that hits different audiences, but it doesn't section them off. So, like in a
Mm,
kids movie where they do like, oh, here's the jokes that are for the kids, and then here's the jokes that are for the adults. They cordon them off, and that's the issue I think with those films is that they don't think that there's a kind of like there's no Venn diagram where those two audiences can align. Whereas this goes like, okay, well, we might put a couple things that maybe adults will get, but we're not shutting off. We're not going to make jokes that will just turn off the adult audience.
right. I mean, and there's some boo, I just lost myself. Continue.
Well, again, like there's some jokes that you kind of get, like oh, a kid wouldn't necessarily get it, but it's not an alien. It's not a joke that would alienate kids. It's like how early Simpsons, like kids loved early Simpsons.
Right.
Like they didn't get it on the same level, I think, as an adult watching the same show, but they still got some kind of enjoyment out of it. And the show, at least at the time, did not try to reduce itself to, it didn't think that kids would, that younger audiences wouldn't get it. Therefore, we're not going to try, or we're not going, or in order to appeal to younger audiences, we're going to, drop the level of humor down. They
Okay, I
just
remember
said
what it
that
was.
people will watch the same thing and get different levels of enjoyment out of it. Without it, it's hard to put it in words, huh?
Yeah, I think I remember what I was actually going to say. Is that one interesting episode? I think that kind of emphasizes like how they're willing to kind of make kind of a broad appeal while being very focused on certain aspects.
Hmm.
Is that they made actually a soccer or football episode right
Ah,
when the World
yeah.
Cup came out, which we would think would sound really kind of pandering and lame, and that the sense of like, well, the World Cup's coming. Better make a World Cup episode because that'll get the attention. But it actually turned out pretty damn good because it just was just a generally fun episode that tied into what was going on. Like a lot of it just had to do with how good they just present it and how good they write it.
Well, it felt
It's a
like they
hard thing
had
to
jokes and a story to tell rather than, oh crap, we have to make a thing, then try to make jokes and story around it.
write.
Like it didn't feel like the carriage was leading the horse.
Yeah, they must have some pretty solid writers on staff. I have not taken a look about who they actually have on their writing staff,
Well, I know
but they
they have
have to be
different
pretty solid.
directors, so that's why you get some different stylistic things.
I know the big guy, one of the big guys leading it is Paul Ruddish,
Yes,
who did the stuff with Jendy Tartakovsky and whatnot. So he's got
yeah.
a long background in kind of comedic writing. But
I actually think
this
he has better pacing and timing than Gennady does.
I would not surprise me because they're
Confession time. I find Tartakovsky's timing a bit labored.
Samurai Jack. Continuing on.
Yeah, yeah. That'll have to say that'll be for
Well, no, I'm
that'll be
just
an episode.
saying
That'll be an
that's a
episode for
perfect
that's
example
an
of
episode
that.
for a later day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean his timing is impeccable, and that is such an important skill for this type of thing. Comedy just needs timing. Like, no, I mean, comedy is serious business. I think a lot of people make the mistake in thinking like, oh, comedy is really easy, and it's the more fun you have and the more loose you are with comedy, the better it is. It's like, no, it's the opposite. The more strict you are in trying to get things executed right, the better you have about being strict about line delivery. That makes some of the best comedy.
Hmm.
Like some of these films where it's like, oh, we have everybody improving all the time, and we just pick, cut a movie around whatever the improv scenes are. Like it's not as good as some of these really tightly structured, well scripted comedies. Like it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of
It's not easy.
skills, and just things have to align. You have to think about it. It's
There's a lot of.
not
I
thoughtless.
presume there's an awful lot of iteration that goes into the writing of these episodes. I wonder.
I think
I wonder
these.
how
I
much.
bet these are storyboard driven.
I wonder how much time they actually spend though, like per board or per the actual like writing of it. Like how much time they spend purely on that aspect of it. It'd be
I
interesting to
bet it's
find
a
out.
good amount of time, especially because they don't have to also animate it at the same time
Mm-hmm.
because this is a co-production. So again, you have that staff that do all the design work and all the scripting and boarding and layouts and things are all done here, and then just doing the movements. They send up to Canada. Of course, that doesn't mean they're given infinite time to do so, and it would really suck for the Canadian branch to have to sit there and wait on the boards to arrive, and they can't just sit there and sit on their hands hoping for the boards and the script to get approved. But I think that sometimes this kind of spreading out the and delegation of duties can be very fruitful by freeing up the time in the hands and the anxiety of the creative process. I mean, I sure wish that on my stuff, like I didn't have to animate and ink and color and do all that stuff myself. I could spend more
Sure.
time working on the scripting and boarding and things like that.
The reception for this show in general it's been pretty good. I've seen it won quite a few like awards and whatnot. Won some
Mm-hmm.
Annies, some Emmys. But an interesting thing I don't quite understand is that if you actually look at the YouTube videos themselves, there's a lot of dislikes on them. I don't know what's going on there.
I think some of it's also just people don't like Disney, or it doesn't resemble the Mickey that they're familiar with.
Hmm.
There's always, I mean, animation in the animation community just loves backlash sometimes.
Hmm.
Like that's like, oh, this is being remade. They'll just,
Which is fair.
which is well, but it's without giving it a chance.
Sure.
Like they go, well, this is a stupid idea. It's like, well, it might turn out to be good. Like some, people didn't expect the Lego movie.
Yeah, it was certainly a
Like
good movie.
like good things can come from anywhere until you at least start seeing like pieces of it and some of the actual art from it. Like what are you gonna say? It's like some people um what was it? There's that new show that they're doing with the Warner Brothers characters, Wabbit or something like that.
Mm.
Um, some people like I haven't seen anything from it, and people are just angry at it existing. They're like,
To be
"I
fair, though, we
hated the Looney Tunes show. I hated this." It's like, well, like, yeah, but we don't know anything about what it is yet.
to be
Like,
fair though, I hated the fact that twisted, absurd Looney Tunes show existed. I mean, just conceptually, what the fuck? I mean,
okay,
I don't
I
think it's
mean,
possible for that to be good, but you know.
I don't, I didn't watch too much of it, but I know some people who did like it. So,
Well, I mean the
hey,
one that we watched. I mean
oh,
the extreme one.
Lunatics.
Yeah,
Okay,
that
no,
one.
no, I'm talking about the
Well,
more
I'm just
sitcom.
saying you
Yeah.
could write that one off though,
Oh
like
well,
pretty
yeah,
easily.
but that's because it feels cynical. That's because you can tell when something's a cynical marketing ploy from a mile away.
Sure, I mean, but that's the impression people had of the Lego Movie initially. I mean,
Oh
that
yeah,
was that was the impression I first had that it was cynical until people said like, yo, dude, actually, pretty
yeah.
damn good. And it's like, oh,
So
oh,
yeah.
oh, okay.
So and some people are also just purists. Again, like
Hmm.
it's like, well, they're deviating from the Mickey model, or they're making this too silly, or they're making the characters too gross. It's like, well, you know what? It works. It's different. I'd actually rather have them try something interesting and new than just continuing the old just because it's tradition. I mean, you know,
And it's not like they've been really doing anything with Mickey for like a
well, I mean,
decade.
besides going to court and trying to extend copyright
Yeah, so that
forever.
was one thing I was kind of saving is so
Yeah,
what how does it feel to know the fact that they probably only made this show because they're going to
they
be going
needed
up
to
to renew
maintain.
this soon?
I mean, like I would
Does
like
that
to
does that
think
affect the
the
praise
enjoyment
we've
of
been
it.
getting it?
No, I mean, I think
Because that's literally the only reason they probably actually made this show.
it's
That's so
well,
they
it's
have a
just
better court
well.
argument.
Let's talk about the. I mean, and it's the same thing with the Lego Movie. I mean, they made it to promote Lego. The product itself just happened to be really good. I enjoyed it. I could kind of divorce the origins from it if the product is good. If
See,
the origins suck and the thing is kind of mediocre and sucks, oh yeah, I can definitely write it off for ideological and artistic reasons. But in
I
this
love
case,
these.
I go,
Yeah,
you know what? The motivations of its creation might not, or on the marketing side and the bean counter side, might not be great. But the people who are on the creative team of it, I think their intentions are great.
sure, and I agree.
So,
In fact, I do love these shorts, but it is worth
oh yeah,
noting
it's
that
worth
the
noting that
sense
it's
that like
definitely a
it's not
copyright
even like I
extension
don't mind things
or a
existing from a
brand
marketing
extension ploy.
standpoint. I don't
Because
exist. I don't mind things existing from a marketing standpoint. Something
well, we
existing
live
to
in
sell
capitalist society,
product.
so we have to.
Yeah, I mean that goes hand in hand with some of this shit. It's like I'm whatever. Sometimes I like to buy stuff. I like to buy things in capital. Uh,
Yes.
but at the same time, though, I have to admit that the whole mindset being behind this, though, the fact that it's there to that, because that's not just something that's just
Well, I
specific to
wouldn't say
like.
it's just that. To give them credit, I think it's also brand extension in that yes, we have the symbol of Mickey Mouse, but like we haven't used him in years. There's going to be generations of people who don't give a shit about Mickey because what exposure do they have to him of a character other than maybe a symbol they've seen on clothing or toys or
Sure.
like designer goods. So by doing these shorts, they extend the brand of Mickey to further generations and keep it in the public consciousness, just extend the brand. So it's not so that could be a part of it in addition to the copyright
Yeah,
aspect
that's true of it,
too.
but it's
So
also
to be to then that and that's just me being charitable. Okay,
yeah.
so the
I
charitable view of it would be, well, they need to do something with Mickey because I mean, other than that, get a horse short, that's what is it? A Runaway Brain was the last theatrical short they had done with Mickey before
yeah.
that Get a Horse one. I mean, they had, I mean, and to be fair, Mickey himself hadn't really been funny for many decades. He just existed out of inertia as a symbol, out of marketing. I mean, that was it. So I mean, so in this case, it might have been a smart way of trying to rebrand him. I mean, the copyright thing I think was going to happen regardless. If they made this show or not, they're still going to go to court and lobby like hell to make the intellectual property laws of this country just nonsensical and oddly harmful to artists. But that's, if you want to read about that, there's a great book by Lawrence Lessig called Free Culture. So that might be something if you're interested in learning about the copyright stuff. But I think even if the show didn't get made, the copyright thing would still be going on.
Oh, it would still happen. Like this isn't
Yeah.
a reason why this happened. And to be fair, they would probably they're probably still going to win.
Oh,
They're probably
they
going to win their
always will.
extension because well, the thing I don't know. Like I realize we're drifting a little bit off topic, but I think it's something worth discussing a little bit. Like for those not aware, basically they instituted a kind of a rolling sort of extension for copyright terms because it's supposed to be that works move out of copyright after some number of decades, which I can't remember offhand.
No, okay, so here's how the law works: is there's something called public domain. Public domain is things that have been around for long enough that no individual can say that the propagation of it is denying them income. So classic fairy tales, certain books that are gone well after, I mean, that have been published and have been like, okay, so copyright used to be 20 to 30 years after the creation
Mhm.
of the product or the story or thing in question,
And I think
because
that
the
the
idea behind it was, okay, if this guy can't make money off of this like thing he made in 20 or 30 years, then like something's wrong. Like it's if he can't do it, and then fuck the guy. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, to put it in that type of words, but the idea was like 20 30 years is a reasonable amount of time for someone to make a lot of money, make enough money off of their thing and then release it to the public sphere, because it's become a part of the public consciousness by now, and it can be
Y-
used and repurposed. Ironically, Disney using fairy tales and very old stories that are in
Right.
public domain for much of its classic movies, that's under the current copyright system. They probably wouldn't have been able to do many of those things. And so what happened is, over time, the rules for copyright were changed from not the creation of the thing. Now it's how many years after death, because now they want to go, well, the estate, that family was relying on that income. And so they kept on extending it and extending it. It got, I mean, it's been getting ridiculous because it's almost over. I think it's like what, 112 years since, like,
I think it's actually 120 years now,
yeah,
right now, for corporate authorship, is what they say.
yep. And so that kept on changing. But the original idea, I mean, so first of all, it was a French concept, was copyright. So creative rights was originally done in France, and then the US adopted it later. But it was originally, the idea was, okay, people have the right to make money off of their creations and not have, someone steal it from them. And, I mean, that seems pretty reasonable. And the reason they had that original time limit is because they calculated that's a decent amount of time for someone to monetize it. Like, either the product isn't good if it's not able to make money in that time, or it's been mismanaged and things like that. So like 20 30 years was given at the time, and I think it still is to some degree, like a decent amount of time. Like, the Madagascar movie, I mean, 20 30 years, that's a good amount of time for it to make money. Like, it's made as much money as it's probably going to make in that 20 30 year period.
Yeah, and the reason, I mean, and having this sort of thing where they keep extending it is ultimately very detrimental to overall, culture because
Yes.
there's a lot of books from like the 20s on, or as they keep adding these extension, more and more works that should end up in, the public domain simply just aren't happening, and they're just never going to be re-released ever again. Like there's music from the 20s
Yep.
that nobody's ever heard. Like there is literally, if you actually look at how much works from each decade is available, prior to the 20s, there's a massive spike in what actually is available in the domain where you can actually buy things, or you can, or you can find online. And then it drops down exponentially right into the 20s, and then just slowly creeps up as, there's actual people alive to sell it. But then that's going to keep on going as time goes on. There's going to always be this growing gulf in the past because this extension certainly benefits certain, companies and corporations that have, certain copyrights and trademarks they want to
Well, then also the
keep carrying
power to
along.
enforce them. So, like, just
Yeah,
because
but
you
then there's
have the
stuff that's
copyright doesn't mean you have the power to enforce it. Because technically, we do have something called free use. It's
Mhm.
just that what free use is not really codified in any meaningful way, and it's very vague. So, culture works off of a lot of pastiche and things like that. And here's the other thing: is that you're talking about books and things like that, but multimedia, it's even worse, because
Right.
multimedia and film and video and documentary and music sampling and all this other aspect, it becomes an absolute nightmare
Because we
of
don't actually know who owns some of these rights anymore. Like we don't know who the estate is.
or
So
you
nobody can.
do, and and they'll do unreasonable, ways of doing it. For example,
Right,
one of
it's nobody knows how to negotiate some of these
so
things.
like for example, the best cases I saw was that it's in that book Free Culture, Lawrence Lessig. I I'm not a partner. I just it's a very good book for that type of stuff. But there was this documentary filmmaker who was doing this documentary on I think it was like an orchestra, I think at Carnegie Hall, and he had this great shot of while this like classic music is played for like this very this upper class of people. The people who actually worked behind the scenes, like the daily workers, were all in the break room watching in the corner of this like this tiny break room a TV with The Simpsons on it. And it was such a great image because you had this contrast of like the upper house, downer house, lower house, and the way culture was kind of bifurcated in that regard. And the documentary filmmakers are like, this is perfect. The Simpsons works perfectly for this as this mass culture thing that's separate from this classical music thing, and having the workers sitting around the TV. And the Simpsons clip, it's like only a couple seconds, and it's like on a tiny TV screen in the corner of it. Like and the documentary filmmakers went to Matt Groening and was like, hey, can we put this into a documentary? Can we keep this shot? And Matt Groening's like, yeah, that's fine with me. But Matt Groening, even though he's the creator, does not necessarily get to give the okay to do so.
Hmm.
And the amount of money that like Fox and whatever all these companies were asking for was just ludicrous. I mean, it's they're not using like they're not showing an episode. They're not showing a long clip. It was in not on the entire screen. It was just in the tiny corner as a thing, and just saying, well, they're watching The Simpsons. Just saying that carries a lot of cultural weight, and it carries a
Hmm.
lot of cultural connotation and meaning, and they wanted that in that scene. But that's intellectual property, so they were going to make them pay $10,000 for that. And if you're an independent artist doing a documentary or you want to do music sampling and things like that, well, good luck. You can't afford to make the art you want to make unless you're already wealthy to begin with or you have a good lawyer. And so that
And
shuts out the creation of art from a lot of people.
and that certainly is also contrary to kind of how art has always worked, in the sense that art has always been highly derivative. Like
Well, it builds on history.
yeah, it's a continual process, a continual, expansion. It's, the whole shoulders of giants type thing. Like
Yes.
there's always these references, these, pastiches, these, it's always kind of been built on throughout history.
Yes.
And, all of our modern things, like Mickey Mouse derives a lot from everything in the
Well,
past, as you
his
said.
own work, Oswald the Rabbit, because
Yeah, sure.
he lost the rights to Oswald the Rabbit, and so on the train ride home, he changes him to Mickey, and now he has his own character.
Yeah, I mean, and just like the standpoint that people can't do anything with these certain trademarks when they're ancient at this point. Like, yeah, it's associated, but the fact that we have these modern day corporations that just won't goddamn die essentially means that somebody they will continue to make the fight and make the argument that they should hold these trademarks and these copyrights in perpetuum.
Yes.
And whether or not that'll actually happen, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe
I'm not optimistic. At least
I'm not optimistic
not
that
in the
it'll stop.
U.S. at least.
But I don't know. It's hard to say, and though at the same time, it would be pretty reasonable if a court would say, okay, enough is enough, in the sense that. But the fact that they're making things like the Mickey Mouse shorts kind of helps in their defense. They're saying like, well,
Hey,
we're
we're
using
making new stuff. Yeah.
we're making new stuff and it's popular. It is, rather than inhibiting creativity by having this trademark be held back. It's actually assisting it because it
But
gives us something to make.
here's the
But
thing. At least they're making something new.
sure,
That's the difference. Is that it's not that they made something and then they haven't done anything with it and they're just writing sitting pretty on it. They're actually producing new stuff. So it kind of makes sense on some level as long as they're producing
right.
something new. That's that's
Well,
where
that certainly will help in their argument.
yeah. Except again there's it's hard, and I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that we have better archiving of art and all this other stuff than we did many years ago. So it becomes more complicated an issue. And like I said, I think that book Free Culture is a really useful guide for people who are curious about this topic, not just in relation of how it evolved politically and legally, but also how creative rights and pastiche and all this other stuff how it works in terms of art and culture. So it's a
Yeah.
really good book. For people maybe, for example, like one of the things I liked, Earthbound, the game. Like under the current system, the music for that game could never have happened.
Right.
Like that's something that's really interesting. In that these types of rules really, how much it really does affect the ability to create these things. Like that is literally like that could not happen. And I think it also was one of the reasons it was difficult to re-release it for so long. So that's that. So hey,
You're
despite the copyright issues and maybe a larger philosophical thing, I definitely recommend these shorts. You can go to youtube.com. User is Disney Shorts. So
And there should be just a playlist on there.
uh,
Which episodes do you like that you would particularly recommend or that you particularly enjoyed
mm,
above all the others?
oh god, it's hard. I think I don't remember the name of it. The dog one.
I believe that is called Doggone Biscuits.
Yes. I also liked the working stiff one, the job interview one.
Hmm.
Um, the Potato Land one.
That was good.
That was fantastic. I even like the one. It was the one where Mickey and Minnie are on a date, and Goofy does not understand that he's not a part of it.
Something third wheel. I think it's just
Yes.
called third wheel.
Yeah,
Actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
In general, I think all the ones with Mickey, Donald, and Goofy together, those tend to be some of my favorite episodes.
Hmm. I'm a real big fan of the foreign ones in general. I
Mm,
love the Mumbai episode.
yes, that
That
was.
was just fucking incredible to me. Mumbai Madness, I believe it was called. I really like the Dutch one, which name I forget. Clogged. That's right.
Yes. Oh, that's the mini one.
Yep. Yeah. That's yeah.
Then
I like
there's then
love
there's the Alps one,
the Alps one, which is called
and in that one,
something.
the bits with the abominable snowman are really funny.
Yeah.
There's some really good self-aware jokes in that one.
Yeah. I really liked the Ghoul Friend episode. I
Yeah,
liked how kind of gross that was. And another good episode. I did like Goofy's grandma quite a
that
lot.
was a good one. That was.
Yeah, there's a few episodes that I'm not that weren't as
Again
good that I didn't care for.
the Parisian one with the Mickey getting the croissant. So that wasn't so good. I mean, and it just wasn't. It just it was typical. It wasn't bad. I mean, it had some. Again, the backgrounds were beautiful. Oh, I liked the New York one.
That was good.
And then there was also the Donald Duck the Sailor one had some really good the dialogue between Minnie and Daisy was
The
really
uh
funny in that one.
the Shrinking Ray one was pretty good.
Oh, the inside Donald's, yeah.
That was pretty dumb, but it was
That
pretty good.
ends in a anal prolapse.
Hey
I
man,
was just well, that or cloacal prolapse. I guess that's what I was like. That's God,
hey man,
that's the most. I think that is the most grotesque they've done that of the cartoons. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but boy, that's pretty grotesque. That's
hey man, Mickey Mouse got a little bit of rat think in him now.
oh god.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Overall, I think it's really worth watching. They're like 3 minutes long each individual episode, and so
It
really,
took me a while to get through them all though. Like when you actually take them in order, it's a good amount of time.
yeah, it's like 33 episodes, I think. So yeah,
Yeah.
apparently they're renewing it for a third season, so we'll get
Yep.
more of that even still.
Well, I hope so. Again, like the artistry on it is just God. Again, I want them to make a book of just the backgrounds. I would love the art boards on this.
Yeah, and it's just something that I'm just glad to just. It's weird that I have subscribed to a Disney Shorts YouTube channel. It's like not something I was really expecting to do, but hey, it's the best way to find out when there's a new one of these shorts, and I see it on my subscription feed, and I'm like, hot diggity.
Yes.
Like those are the exact words I use, in fact.
All right. So, okay, a couple news things. We now have an email for the podcast. Zorak?
Yes. It is called
Come on.
AD the podcast at gmail.com.
So definitely feel free to send suggestions of things. I have a list. I have Neeksy's list. So I have like a ton of stuff. So, but I'm constantly adding to it, and I also put the names next to the people who recommend them, so you guys get credit too. So definitely send that. Send us responses, like if you either agree or disagree with things we said. I would love to get some dialogue going. We can do episodes reading out and responding to some of these things, have a dialogue and things like that. So I thought that would be a lot of fun to do. So set up this email account for you guys. Also, of course, if you subscribe to us on iTunes, it's really easy to get a hold of the podcast. So you don't have to necessarily go to the Libsyn website anymore. It is on iTunes. It will automatically download if you set it to that. It'll update you whenever we put an episode up. We are definitely going to try to put some more up. But another way to help us out on there is if you review and review episodes and things like that, give us some feedback. That helps get raise the profile of the show and get more people going in on it, and hopefully that will also get us more recommendations of things to watch and more feedback, so give you guys more content to talk about. So
Yeah.
that,
Tell your friends. We're gonna certainly try to be a lot more regular going forward. We've
yes.
had a variety of issues getting kind of in the way. You getting sick in the fall. We had just a lot of shit get in the way. You know, you were moving and whatnot. So
Oh yeah, and just different job stuff. I'm going to
yeah,
be
just a
teaching.
headache.
I'm going to be teaching soon. Hopefully, maybe sometime this summer. Might be moving abroad to Sweden. So there's some things that are going to be happening. I mean that or Canada. Those seem to be the two places that are so, but you know, I'm getting a better hang of how to produce the show at a faster rate, so we'll get more stuff out. And definitely, I think having more feedback from you guys gives us more to work with. So definitely send those in, whether they're great things that you want to bring more attention to, or if you think they are horrible but funny. Definitely send those ones in. I definitely need something to riff on these days.
And
So,
I
oh, and then a friend
believe.
of ours has a podcast going as well, Mr. Toro Coho.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Red has a podcast about magic flavor. If you play Magic the Gathering, he's got a podcast over at I believe I don't remember the exact URL, but it's Planescast.
Yes.
So if you're into that kind of thing, hey.
Yes. Say, friends of the show, got to promote him.
Yep. And next time we're going to be talking about Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue in light of the new art book coming out.
Yes, and also it's a film that
It's a great
it's
film.
a great film. So and there's a lot of content to talk about in it. So that is your homework if you want to watch it ahead of time for next week. It's available in a lot of formats, DVD especially. So definitely check that one out. Really worth watching, and you'll probably be lost if you're listening to us without watching it. I mean, unless well, we'll see. It's interesting.
We're probably gonna go in
We're
deep a
gonna
little
we're gonna
bit
have to
about
we're gonna
that
go in
one.
deep. So there's gonna be spoilers in it. So as much as you can really spoil a movie like that, it's definitely the experience. So anyway, this has been Neeksy. You can find me on Twitter anytime at RY Magnuson.
And I'm Zorak, and you can find me at SA Zorak.
All right, keep watching.